Here we have one of the most powerful concepts in economics, comparative advantage versus absolute advantage. And this was discovered and codified by David Ricardo and has since been a very hard concept to understand because it's not immediately obvious. And once you get it, you say, oh my gosh, the lights turn on, and forever after you understand. But there are still people in our political leadership structure that do not understand this. I will frequently see some crazy articles in like the New York Times or something like that that simply do not understand how things really work. So it's going to put you ahead of a lot of people if you get this, and it's going to be a video that you might have to go back and rewatch a couple times in order to understand this concept. Okay, so let's see if we can do it. First off, I want to say that the reason we trade with Somalia, that's a country in East Africa, is the same reason my kids do the dishes. All right? So I'm going to start with something almost everyone knows, the idea of doing dishes. So here we go. We're going to put it in a grid. There are dishes to be done, and there are also taxes that need to be done. Okay? Both those things in my household have to be done. I've got the kids, and I've got myself that could do them. Now it turns out, I don't know about your house, but in my house, if I put 3 kids doing the dishes, they all squabble over who does the top, who does the bottom, how did you do it right, where did you do it? They get off on these conversations or tangents somewhere else. And by the time the dishes are finally done, it's been like 20 minutes. So it takes them 20 minutes to do the dishes, whereas I just go right to it and start doing it. I have no conversations or arguments. I just get it done 5 minutes. I'm done with the dishes. So what you would say here then, that I am better than my kids at doing the dishes. All right? If you look over here at taxes, you'll find that my kids struggle just doing their own taxes, which are very small. If they tried to do mine, which are pretty complex, it might take them an infinite amount of time. They would give up and not do them after, a month of trying to learn it. So what they would do is they would just have infinity. They would never get it done. It takes me about 3 days. Okay? So what I have here is something called an absolute advantage. I am better than my kids at doing the dishes, and I am better than my kids at doing the taxes. I have what's called an absolute advantage. And what happens is that a lot of people would say, well, if you're better at both those things, Mr. Haight, then you should do both those things. Because wouldn't that be the most efficient thing? You're better than them at these 2 things. You have an absolute advantage. You should do both the dishes and the taxes because you're better at it. That's what most people think. In fact, whole countries have pursued this type of thinking in their policies over time. David Ricardo says that's not the case. What we should do is we should pursue the comparative advantage. We should compare where the highest efficiency difference is, and that's where we determine who does what. So for example here, I am 4 times better than my kids at doing the dishes. It takes them 20 minutes, it takes me 5 minutes. I'm 4 times better, or you could say they're 4 times slower, however you want to say it. If you look over here at taxes though, instead of comparing this way, we compare it this way. We see that my kids, I'm infinitely better than my kids at doing the taxes. So I'm 4 times better in one case, and I'm infinitely better in another case. So the biggest efficiency is found right here. So if that's the case, I should do the taxes because that's the biggest efficiency. And where do we have the smallest difference between their performance and my performance is right here, and they should do the dishes. And you say, well, that doesn't quite make sense because it will take them longer. Yes, it will, but here's the thing. What do I gain from them doing the dishes? Think about that. What do I gain from them doing the dishes? And you'll say something like builds character, or you feel good, or you're trying to teach your kids how to do it. No, that's not it. I mean, that might happen, but that has nothing to do with it. The reason I have my kids do the dishes is because I gain an additional 5 minutes. If I don't have to do the dishes and they do them, I get 5 minutes of free time to do whatever I want. And I could put that time towards doing the taxes. So if my kids do these other jobs, even though I'm better than them at doing them, it frees up my time that I can then put towards the most efficient use of my time, and that's doing the taxes. Okay? So that's the difference between absolute advantage and comparative advantage. For your notes there, we're going to take a look. Absolute advantage means then you are better than the other, whether that's a person or a country or whatever it is. You've got two or more entities, and you're better than the other at everything. And so no trade would happen. And so what happened is a lot of countries in Europe especially, they engaged in something called mercantilism in the 1600s and 1700s because they thought this is how you should operate. They said to themselves, look, we the British are better than the Americans at everything. They had all the industry, they had all the technology, they had more people at that time when America was first starting out. And the British had all the advantages. So they said, look, what we're going to do with you Americans is we're going to take all of your resources back to England. All you got to do is just cut down the trees, send us the fish, dig out the coal. We're going to process it and turn it into something useful, and then we're going to ship it back to you. So the idea was then that you would go out and get a colony, you would strip the resources out, bring it back, you would do your best job with it, and then sell the goods abroad, and you would get rich. And that works, kind of, but it's not very efficient. And so that's why colonies developed, because this whole idea around mercantilism, we will simply say, we're better than everyone at everything. The resources have to come back to us, and we have to do it all. What David Ricardo pointed out was that's absolutely false. If you truly want to get rich and be efficient, what you need to engage in is something called comparative advantage. Okay? This is saying that the total advantage is irrelevant. Who cares who has an absolute advantage or not? What matters is where you find the most efficiencies when you do your comparison. So what you're trying to do is maximize the amount of efficiencies you can find. And so sure, I can do things better than my kids, but then does that mean I'm supposed to do everything in the house? I would have no time to do everything. So what we're looking at here is where are the best efficiencies found? And for me, it's found here at taxes. So I'm infinitely better than my kids here, and I'm only 4 times better than my kids there. So I should devote my time here. I should specialize, if you remember that from the first one, I should specialize in doing the taxes. And my kids should do the dishes. That is a division of labor. And what will we get out of this? We will both get more time. Because time is something that is equal for everyone. Okay? Everyone has the exact same amount of time to trade. Got to keep that in mind. So even if you have no skills, you have time. And it's equal to the highest money earning investment banker in the world still only has the same amount of time as you. So what you're really trading is you're trying to find the highest efficiencies so that you all get more time. Because that's sort of like getting more life. It's extending your life because now you have time to do other things you would have had to be working that whole time with. It gives you more freedom. Okay? I'm going to do this again to show you that on the international level, it works exactly the same as in my house. Over here, you've got a country called Somalia. I don't know if you know about Somalia, but it's in East Africa. It's famous for having pirates. They have had a long-standing 6-way civil war. It's a really poor country. You know, I'm thinking only 30% of the people can even read. I mean, we're talking really, really poor, okay? So when you look at Somalia compared to the United States has an absolute advantage. Anything that the Somalis try and do, we can do better. There's no question about it. It just pick whatever product, whatever industry, the United States will be better at it. The question is then, should we trade with Somalia? And the answer should be yes. Because we look at this here and we say, look, growing rice, the Somalis can grow 100 tons of rice that they could trade. But in America, we can grow 1,000,000 tons of rice. We are way better than them at rice. But we look over here at something like biochemical engineering. The Somalis have no factories, they have no capital for any of that. They can't make any kind of biochemical formulas. All right? How many can Americans make? Our firms can churn out 100 different biochemical formulas per year. So again, similar to our dishes here, we've got this comparison right here, which is, what is that? 100 times better. And over here, in this case, we are infinitely better than Somalia at biochemical engineering. So what we should do is that we should have less rice, and we should trade with the Somalis for every rice grain they've got, and they focus on rice, and we focus on biochemical engineering, and then we trade a few of our formulas for their grains of rice. They're better off because they get some modern things that can help with the growing of more rice or more other agricultural products, and we get the benefit of specializing in something like biochemical engineering. We don't have to be out there slogging through the rice fields trying to generate some rice for our food. I hope you're starting to understand how this works here. What you really need to focus on is that we are bargaining with time. What you're gaining is time. If you specialize in the thing that you do best, you can trade that to the other people, and they will get the best of what you have to offer, and you will get the best of what they have to offer, and you will both be happier. All right?